This is Red for On The Red Entertainment Blog, coming to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations number 128. First movie I watched was Clifford the Big Red Dog, and for someone who grew up watching the cartoon, he was excited there was a live-action version, and that Kenan Thompson and Alex Moffat of SNL were in the movie, and there was a bunch of other actors and comedians that you've seen before, like David Alan Grier and Russell Wong, and John Cleese was in there, Tony Hale. So I thought it was pretty clever. Obviously, it's sometimes very stupid and childish, but that's what happens when you watch a kid's movie, and the writing wasn't the greatest, and the whole CGI thing was interesting, and the stereotypical, like, smart Asian kid, crazy European lady, Middle Eastern people, Hispanic people, how they portrayed them, you know, a little bit over the top, but, you know, the story wasn't the way it was in the TV show, but hey, it's a different person telling it. But for like 90 minutes with credits, children will love this movie. You may enjoy it for nostalgia. I would suggest it. And I watched Together. It's listed as a comedy, but it's a weird thing. So basically, Ed Helms decides to find a surrogate because he wants to raise his child on his own because all of his friends are either married with kids or not interested, and he's like, I kind of want to do it. And his parents are actors I've seen before. But yeah, so the chemistry between the two actors, Ed Helms and Patty Harrison, was great because it just when that wasn't just a surrogate and the guy, you know, whose baby's going to be, they became like close friends, and they got a very romantic, but like not romantic, but emotional bond and relationship that's like a different kind of love, and how they're growing over conservative child. Tig Notaro was in here, and she's always funny. And yeah, I thought that this movie was clever, a little quirky and weird. Like some people, knowing like myself, as in the 80-minute runtime. The only issue I have is this is not supposed to be negative about any group of people, because as I just said in the Clifford movie, they kind of were over the top with, you know, cliches about certain races. I didn't like that, but in this, my issue is Patty Harrison playing a woman who's a surrogate to have children is kind of not the easiest to believe because she is transgender. It's not saying that they shouldn't have casted her. No. I'm just saying when you're making a movie about a woman being a surrogate, you have to make it believable with that actress. Like, you have to make it like she's in her 20s or 30s and not in like her 50s. You know what I'm saying? So that little small aspect just wasn't believable. But overall, I can get why it's certain fried, rotten, fresh. Then I watched the movie Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2 because I went and checked out Don't Breathe 2. And then I said to myself, I don't think I saw this movie because I think this movie was made like 5-6 years ago. And I definitely don't remember watching it. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of Jane Levy from Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. And this dude who looks like Dylan O'Brien, Dylan Minnette, he's a good actor. And Stephen Langs, I've seen him in lots of different wide ranges, drama, action, you name it, sci-fi. And to say this is one of the world's greatest American horror films in the last 20 years, no. The plot of serial burglars being told, like the shady friend of the group being told by another shady person that you can go and steal from this person, and that person has all this money, lives on his own, his daughter was killed, he's blind, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't go anywhere. And then all of them, like, die except for, like, Jane Levy. It's like, I'm sorry to spoil it, the movie's really old now at this point, more than 5 years. I wasn't really scared. I wasn't creepy. It was just like, okay, I felt like it was more of a survival film where, like, oh, the blind old guy, yeah, he's going to let people take advantage of him? Nah. And then number 2 is, I still don't understand why they made a sequel by saying he found his daughter finally. Because what I didn't like was he kidnapped the woman who supposedly killed his child and raped her and was going to have her deliver the baby, so he had a new child and let her go. And he was trying to do the same to Jane Levy. But this one is supposedly finds a girl, and then the family comes back out of prison to come and attack him. And it's all about, do you trust the person to help raise you or your real family, and all these weird people involved, and them coming to attack them, and dogs being killed and survived. I don't know. I just felt like for both these movies, one's not one of the world's greatest horror films, and also there was no need for a sequel. Then I watched the movie 6 Minutes to Midnight, and I don't know what's up with Eddie Izzard, because recently he's been identifying as a lady or whatever it is, so, but it was when someone told me it's like a passion project of his, he helped co-write it, produce it, direct it, screenplay, all that stuff. So it's like his imprint on the movie, and James D'Arcy's an agent, and Judi Dench is in charge of the children's group, and it's based off a true story, like at the beginnings of World War II. You're like, cool. It's got a historical aspect. Someone really researched this movie and did a good job, but the writing was a little clunky, no offense, Eddie. And I don't know, are you in your 50s or 60s right now? It's like, yeah, he's 60 years old, so this movie made him in his late 50s. He's not believable as a British agent to go undercover at a school to be a teacher and find out all this Nazi stuff. But this movie had a lot of him running from the law and running away, and I felt like, yeah, it's not realistic with this guy. Maybe James D'Arcy doing that, but yeah. Judi Dench, I'm sorry that you were in this movie because it wasn't the world's greatest movie, but I would rather sit through this historical film that has the world's greatest writing and it's not believable stuff than the two movies, Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2, and some of the other movies I've watched recently, including this week's batch, some of them. But yeah, the idea that there was German rich people sending their kids to like a boarding school somewhere in the UK, you know, in Britain, where they're being taught all this American stuff, and then eventually using that to like spread Nazism and fascism and all this other stuff and try to take over the thing. So it's like the town of Bexel on the Sea, so it's interesting. And that they're one of the teachers and all this other stuff. I thought, you know what? Based on a true story, this guy really tried his best in this movie. If you maybe casted a young Hugh Grant or or maybe even Colin Firth or Taron Egerton or somebody younger in their 30s, someone half the age of him, it would have been a little bit more believable. And if he got help writing it than what it was, because I'm sorry that he put a lot of effort into this, but the writing was a little clunky. But again, only 90-something minutes. I felt like I actually enjoyed this, you know, spy movie. Then I watched one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. So Riley Keough, Coleman Domingo, Taylor Page. I don't really know you people off the top of my head, but Nicholas Braun, man. I remember watching you in Disney Prom, and you've been in some great rom-coms, and you've been in some great dramas. Why would you waste your time with such a horrible movie? Like, I don't get it. The saving grace is barely an hour and 25 minutes. But basically, this movie is based off like a Twitter exchange and all social media where this black girl meets a white girl at a restaurant, and they're like, hey, you were cool. Let's be friends. Let's hang out. Cool. Then hey, I'm going to go dancing in Florida. Would you come with me? Turns out it's like she's a boyfriend, but then she has a pimp. And the pimp then brings the girl along to it, and the black girl's got to go along with it. And she ain't going to go for along with it, but he's like, I know where you live. You know, you're all here by yourself. What are you going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And like, the fact that it was based on a true story. I do like that fact that the pimp, you know, really believable in his role. I've seen him in other movies, just can't picture it. He's gay in real life, so it was like really good acting. You don't have to be straight to play straight guy, gay guy to gay guy. But yeah, this movie kept getting worse and worse, and they were showing every single time the white lady has sex with somebody, and all these naked men. It was just like, the writing was horrible. I didn't find the movie funny. I found it cringeworthy and horrible and stupid and sophomoric and just horrible. It should be rated X, okay? And then halfway through the movie, they have the white girl tell her side of the story, and I'm like, this get even stupider. Like, none of this is believable. Even if it happened, this is stupid. Like, the library tells me they don't buy every single movie because they physically can't, and not every movie is worth it to buy. Well, I understand that some of the time, but this time, they bought this movie, and it's horrible. I just told them you got to burn off your copy of this movie. Horrible. Then I watched the movie Turning Red, and I will say this, Disney, it's not as good as people say Ignacio is, or I think Luca is, but overall, okay story, but it was confusing. Did it take place in the 90s to early 2000s? Do all middle schoolers have, like, Blackberries and flip phone? And it was more about, like, it was interesting. It took place in Canada. She had a white friend, another Asian friend, a Middle Eastern friend, I think, something like that. She's, you know, Chinese, and her family's got this hierarchy of family where, like, all the women, when they become a woman, they can turn into a red panda, like her grandmother and all of her aunts. And my question is, do her aunts never got married, or they're just old right now, like her grandmother is? You know, like her great aunts and stuff. It's like, I don't get it. But yeah, it basically parallels, like, you never know. The parents should know what their kid's going through, but the kids never knew that their parent went through the exact same thing with their parent, if it's the same cycle of obedience and following the rules. And some people are like, I don't like the movie because it was about, like, disobeying your parents. And like, no, it's about being who you are. And despite the fact that, like, you have your family and your culture and your religious ethnicity, like me, Jewish, like, your parents gotta let you be your own person. And obviously the teenager, that's very important. I thought it was very, very interesting enough. But then the boy band was interesting because I love the Backstreet Boys, so it was interesting. But, you know, it was somewhat K-pop, the boy band, but then you had white guys and black guys, and I'm just confused what they're trying to accomplish there. And then the lyrics were just stupid and weird for the songs, but some of it got emotional. Some of it was like teary with the understanding the mother's plight and trying to save the day, and the boy band trying to save the day. And I was like, you know what? Not bad. I'm glad that Disney's not only making remakes of cartoons into live action or just remaking old stuff like other places do, that they at least try to come up with an original idea. You know, it's like, whoever wrote this, it seems like a very original idea. And it's barely in 90 minutes because, with children's movie, the credits. Then the last movie I watched before I go out of town is The French Dispatch. It is one of these Wes Anderson, like, weird movies where it's a bunch of stories that supposedly connect together. So there's, like, painters and, like, art and people working at the, French Dispatch, magazine and stuff. And they got all these different stories and, like, vignettes that all get together. And it feels like it drags on for a movie that's supposed to be, like, an hour and 40 minutes. It felt like it was 2 hours. Like, I lost interest after 30, 40 minutes because a lot of it wasn't that interesting. Now, obviously, it's the second time I've seen a movie with Bill Murray where I'm like, maybe I understand because it's a Wes Anderson movie, but for the most part, I don't know why Bill Murray wasted his time in this movie. Tilda Swinton was in it, but I couldn't tell with all the makeups and special stuff. Jeffrey Wright was really good in this movie. Timothy Chalamet was okay. Frances McDormand was okay. Adrian Brody was pretty convincing. So was Benicio del Toro playing a Hispanic Jewish painter. It was interesting. Owen Wilson was briefly in it. Henry Winkler was in it. Like, for the most part, and then the guy from Spider-Man, Tony Rivoli, was in it. But for the most part, I'm just like, I don't get it. Maybe because I don't understand art movies or French movies. But, like, when you lose interest at some point in the movie, you're just like, yeah, like, I didn't understand it. But yeah, at least, so I'm going to tell you this on the Red Entertainment blog, movie reviews people. If your public library has this movie, tell them to burn it. If you see it in Redbox, tell Jewel Osco to burn it. Go on Amazon or wherever you buy DVDs or where you stream movies, because this should be littered with the worst reviews ever, okay? I never understand how this is going to be certified fresh, because it is the complete opposite. Maybe it's so bad it's so good, because even Jason Mitchell, who's a good actor, was playing a horrible person. Like, I don't get it, man. It's just, how could this possibly be certified fresh at an 88%? It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Like, burn this forever. And I'm going to say, Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 1, 2 were bad, but I just don't get the hype. And I don't get French movies like French Dispatch. And Minutes to Midnight had flaws. So reality was, the best movies I watched were Disney's Turning Red, but really Clifford the Big Red Dog. And then even with the quirkiness and the not the believable actress in the role, together, those are the best 3 movies I watched this week. And movies like Minutes to Midnight and French Dispatch are kind of in the middle. Okay? Thanks for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations, number 128. From the Red Entertainment blog, I'm Raider. See you guys next time.